everybody, and welcome to the Quest with Carole Lynn Grant. I am so excited and honored to be hosting this show with an internationally acclaimed, she's an internationally acclaimed metaphysician, seen across all avenues of broadcast for the last 40 years. She has so many skills and abilities, and our goal on this show is to have her share those skills and abilities with you and to teach our viewers some of her knowledge that she has. And if you watch this show and you watch the shows in the coming weeks and months, and you won't want to miss these shows because she's going to share an incredible amount of information with you. So welcome to the show, Carole Lynn Grant. It's really great to be here with you.
Welcome. Hi, everybody. Actually, we named the show The Quest. So it's Carole Lynn Grant with The Quest. Because I've been on a journey, actually, for almost 50 years of using my intuition, which is a gift that was given to me by the source of all creation. And you all have the ability to use your intuition. And, you know, in this time when our world is changing so much, it's really helpful to use all your brain. And that's what we're going to, I mean, Einstein said our imagination is so much more valuable than our logic. And so I'm going to tell you stories, adventures that happened to me. I became psychic overnight from a near-death experience, giving birth to my twin daughters. And I didn't know that I was psychic. I got home with my babies and my family came to visit me. I have one daughter on each arm, Holly and Heather. And as I was walking to the living room, I heard a voice. And the voice said to me, earthquake in Guatemala, a lot of death and a lot of damage. And so I just said it out loud to my family because I said there's going to be a really bad earthquake in Guatemala in 3 days, a lot of death and a lot of damage. And that's what happened. The earthquake hit. And that began my journey of world visions and prophecy and events that were going to happen all around the world. And so in that experience, because I know that a mind greater than my mind was giving me this intuition. We can call it spirit, supernatural, the source, whatever it is. And I feel that you, audience, are you want to use more of your mind. You've got that urge, you've got that drawing. And when we have that drawing, that's when we want to learn more. And so this quest is about learning more of how to use your brain.
So, Carole, it all started for me around 40 years ago when I was living out in Los Angeles and I was listening to different radio shows. And I've always been very attracted to metaphysics and things that can't easily be explained. And you certainly are an expert at all these things that scientifically still can't explain. But can you tell me how you ended up being on the radio when someone I listen to all the time? It's such an interesting story.
Yes, well, I also heard from that voice because I kept on getting earthquakes. And I finally said, Spirit, if you're going to show me where these earthquakes are, then move me to a place where it matters. And that's what happened. By then, I was teaching intuition. I was the first teacher to teach intuition at the Psychical Research Center in Hollywood, Florida, and also the first to teach at NOVA Executive ESP. And in that audience, I had 38 students. I had a young man sitting right in front of me in the first row. And I looked into his energy field, his aura. I was teaching about auras that night. And I said, "She's such an interesting mother." And he said, "She's coming to visit in about 3 weeks. Let's do lunch." And so we did. And she asked me to complete a reading that somebody had done in California, and I did. And she said, "My dear, there are no like psychics like you in California." And to me, that was funny because I thought all the psychics were in California. Anyway, she said, "If you will write the programs, I will go set the TV, the radio, the colleges, the institutions. I'll get everything ready for you." And I went, "Okay," because before that, I had heard leave the month of August free. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I said, "I have the month of August." She said, "Fine." And so that woman wound up being the head of the American Holistic Association. So she had clout. It wasn't a problem for her to open all those doors. I want to say that to our people right now, because this is a gateway. The windows in heaven are open. And just one person can open a door for you that will bring you a whole new world. And that's what the quest is about, to bring you a whole new world. So the rest of the story is I flew to California, Humboldt County, and when the plane landed, I was greeted by police on one side and reporters on the other. Police wanted me to work with crimes, helping them solve crimes, and the reporters wanted like a Nancy Drew story. And then I did television that night with a forensic hypnotist who was also a chief of police. Can you imagine all in one day? And so I did, and I did the interview, and I got a call, and the person asked me if I would do a radio show called Kaleidoscope. I said, "Okay," and I said, "When would you like me there?" They said, "Tomorrow." I went, "Okay." It was an hour show, and we did that hour show, and they asked me if I would come back and do another show. I said, "Sure." So I went back the next day, and then they asked me to come back again. And Bruce, can you imagine? So this is the third day of Kaleidoscope because there's so much to talk about. This is a brave new world. I mean, it's unlimited. You know, your stories don't get boring because they're unique, they're different. And so by the end of that show, the owner of the radio station, KEKA in Humboldt County, gave me my radio show. And so my first radio show was called Cosmic Dimensions.
Yay, I remember that.
That's where you were listening.
Yeah, that's great. That's wonderful. So it's one thing to be able to feel the energy, hear messages in the comfort of your own home. It's another thing to take what you're hearing and turn it into something where you can really help a lot of people. So, what was your experience after you started doing radio broadcasts and television broadcasts? What happened then?
By the way, I have no background in radio or TV. I didn't know I could do it. And that's something else our audience is going to learn. You don't have to know what to do, what Source is telling you to do, because Source is going to make the way. And so on my radio show, I started predicting on earthquakes, but what wound up being more fun is I have the ability to predict football games. Who's going to win the football games or who's going to win the World Series? Sports, I love sports, but I didn't know that I could predict them. And when I started doing that on the air, then all the other radio stations in California invited me on their shows because they wanted me to predict sports. And so my name and my legend, if you will, grew quick. I think if you talk about things that people are interested in, and it's not the same old, like you hear in radio shows, like news now. You turn on one news broadcast, you're going to see it 5 different times on somebody else's show. What's happening? And this show is going to be always unique, always different. Being in California, probably one of the most unique things that happened is I got to train police in street survival. What is street survival? Using your intuition to sense when you're out looking for a convict or somebody, how to be safe. And so, because I have been working with police, Humboldt County got all their policemen together. I had 600 policemen in my audience, and me. I'm a little person. I'm not even 5 foot, and I felt really small that day. And I said, Spirit, what am I going to do with these policemen so they know that they are intuitive? And Spirit said, give them a piece of paper and a box of crayons. That's what I did. All 600 of them got a blank piece of paper and a box of crayons. And I told them to doodle for 3 minutes. And they did. They just doodle. Don't worry about being an artist, just doodle. And then I told them to hand that paper to somebody in the audience that they didn't know. And they could all read each other.
Wow.
If something you're going to travel, your grandma's, whatever it was, they would pick up at least one thing that was about to happen in their life. And that was so wonderful that then I got to have these policemen as my students, and we worked together on developing your intuition.
Isn't that something? So if we get one message across during this show, Carole, I think the message would be we all have the ability to use our intuition. And it's like going to a gym. If you're, 200 pounds and 5 feet tall, 5'5", you're overweight and you need to lose weight. How do you do that? Or you want to lift weights. How do you do that? You go to the gym, and you go to the gym on a regular basis, and you don't just spend 10 minutes or 15 minutes. You work on it. It's the same thing with developing your intuition, which is it's a signal to you that once we get to understand it and work with it, it's a fail-safe signal. It works almost every time. So how can we encourage people to use their intuition? What kind of exercises, just like you did with the police just now?
What I would say, Bruce, is that people are already psychic. They're dreaming dreams. They come true. They have instincts or hunches. People use different words, but it's all ESP. It's all intuition, where you get a thought about somebody and it's true, or you get this feeling, I need to call someone. Maybe they need to be cheered up today. I mean, from little things like that to big life changing things. So a way you can practice is when the phone rings, guess who's on the other end? And then before you pick up the phone, guess what they're wearing? And to go a step further, guess what they're thinking? And if it's a friend, you can just say, or try an experiment. Are you on red today? Yes. Are you a little concerned about a family member? Yes. You know, um, for some people that might seem creepy, so do it with a good friend. Who, because we don't want to invade people's privacy. But when you use your intuition, a lot of times it saves your life. I'll tell you one time my life was saved by using intuition. Um, I was driving in my car on I-95 here, leaving the airport at 5 o'clock at night. Now, this is the busiest road we have in our area. 5 o'clock is crowded. And all of a sudden, I hit a grease spot and my car started to go up in the air and spin around. It was so scary. And when it landed, I landed and I hit the dividing line, you know, and it broke my battery in my car. I couldn't start my car up. And the interesting thing is that nobody had any accidents behind me. They were all racing, but nobody got hurt. And this big, tall man, he looked like Paul Bunyan, got out of his truck and walked up to my car. And he said, "Pop your hood." I was, Bruce, I was so upset. I couldn't remember how to pop it. I couldn't remember how to open my hood. So we got it open. He put my battery back together. And within 5 minutes, I was driving off that highway. And that's a wondering stuff. I drove all the way off the highway because I was shaking so bad. It was such a scary experience. But I bet you there's a lot of people in our audience that have had a life-saving experience. Have you had one?
Yeah, I mean, I can't put my finger on it right now, but I know people that missed airplanes and everything got in their way to miss that airplane. And then, maybe there was a mishap on the airplane. Uh,
I know a story about you. I mean, you were the American voice for the Caribbean for like 9 years, right?
yes, that's true.
And all of a sudden, wherever you were living, it was taking siege. And you
Yeah.
rescued a little girl. She wasn't even your daughter, but you guys rescued this girl and have raised her. Her name's Maya.
Her name is Kenya Maya.
And Maya, how beautiful. And you escaped. You got out of Dodge. And did you come to Florida?
Yes, I listened big time to what my head was telling me because
That's
there
in
were,
your head. Your
yeah,
intuition.
there were Spanish journalists, radio, newspaper people that were literally being murdered all the time. There was 20 murdered, and it finally came to me that what was going on is that if you want to take over a country, you take out the reporters, the broadcasters who would go against you. And that's exactly what they were doing. And I realized that because the island I was living on, where we came across Kenya and eventually adopted her from very, very, very young girl, that we realized that it was just a matter of time until the bad guys were going to come to the island, and I was the head guy on the island for all the English speaking people. And I just said, honey, we got to go. This is bad. This is rough. And we had to literally sneak out in the middle of the night. And I remember finally getting on the airplane, and there was a movie on the air when they rescued a bunch of Americans from Iran or something like that. And they waited till they crossed Iran airspace. And when they announced it, the whole plane erupted because that's the first moment that they felt safe. And that's exactly what it was for me. But that happened because I used my intuition. And I'm sure I saved my family's life at that time.
I'm sure. I mean, that's a really big story. A little story. I saved a boy's life one time. My twins were two, and by now I was driving to teach at the Psychical Research Center, and I heard a voice in my head that said, "Stop." And it was so profound and so loud that I stopped my car, and it actually stalled my car. I stopped it so suddenly. But just then, a boy came out from behind the cars riding on a bicycle. I would have killed him, you know? I mean, because it would have been such a hard impact. So it doesn't have to be a big thing, but it can be a sudden thing, or it can be a subtle thing. Sometimes when we hear that whisper is so, like, for example, take an umbrella with you and you look outside in the sunshine. Later that day, it's pouring. It's a big storm, but we left our umbrella home because we didn't listen to our intuition. So this show, The Quest, on my show, my most popular radio show here was called Mind Quest, which I had for 6 years. And I had world speakers, and we planned to do that. To have different guests, different speakers, and to be in different locations and have a fully alive show. And so on Mind Quest, I wanted to continue that journey. So that's why this show is called Carole Lynn Grant with the Quest. Because we're going to tell you about real life, intuitive experiences that happened with us or our guests, and then show you different ways you can do it. Another fun way you could test your intuition this week, because you're going to have a little homework. I mean, if you want to be part of the fun, you got to give it a try, right? If you're driving down the highway, guess the color of the next car that's going to pass you. All right, that's all kind of fun. And then guess the numbers that are on their license tag. Hmm? Okay, and if you even get one number right, you're doing really good. And like Bruce said, we can train our brain. It's like practicing for tennis. The more we practice using our intuition, the more we develop it. It's not hard. We don't have to go to a class, but classes are good. I'm going to have some classes here. Always had classes everywhere, in wonderful places. But I'm going to invite people to my home so that we can all have a party together, learning how to use our intuition, and then have a potluck afterwards. You can do that with your, maybe you've got a couple of friends who are just as curious as you are. It's good to have a good teacher. And I didn't know, Bruce, what intuition was, what I was learning. And I finally said to Source Mind, why am I getting all these earthquakes? Because there was a need for prophecy in California, because there was a lot of earthquakes at that time. It was 1979, 1980. And when I landed I said to the reporters, there's going to be an earthquake in Eureka. And they said to me, we don't have earthquakes here. We're not on the fault line. Well, P.S., the earthquake came 4 months later at 2:30 in the morning. And television stations came to my house because I had predicted it. You know, so this is a wild and wacky time on the earth. And at the shows, I'll talk about the lay of the land, what's going on with the planets, and we'll talk about astrology, how it benefits you, and we'll talk about reading auras because that's really interesting too. And so I hope you enjoyed this show because you'll enjoy being able to, after 50 years, to be able to share some great and wonderful stories.
This show is going to be far from what some people call woo woo. We're gonna deal with world issues. We're going to try to figure out what's going on in the world, what's really going on in the world. The same way that, people want to know when you predicted those earthquakes, all of a sudden an earthquake happens. People want to know where you're coming from. And when an earthquake happens, they find out exactly that you're talented and have skills.
More than that, it prepares them. They get a little bit ready and they listen to the first rumble. Because I'll tell you, when that earthquake hit at 2:30 in the morning, I got out of the house. I mean, it says go in the door jam. I wasn't ready to stay in the door jam. I got out of the house. But Bruce, I thought I was just going to be running, but it was like the ground was the ocean. It was cracking and waving. So scary. Yeah.
I was in one of those rollers with Lauren. As a matter of fact, when we lived out in California, we were in one of those rollers. It was only like a 3.2 or 3.4, but that was enough. So
mine was 7.2. 7.2 was a big earthquake. But fortunately, there wasn't a lot of damage. It just broke a bridge, but it wasn't, I think our construction, is at 7.2, what was in Haiti, or it destroyed their whole land, but we're luckier because we have better construction here.
Well, this has been a great first show, Carole. I'm so excited to be able to go along this beautiful ride with you. And of course, I'll be getting a whole lot of value because I'll be learning right from you. And we'll be doing classes together. I'll help you with, getting people over there and being there to help organize things. And so
I'm looking forward to Bruce Starr. We didn't introduce you. Thank you for being my host. And thank you for holding this mission for almost a year for me. You've been waiting. Can we do the show? Yes. Now we're on our way.
Yeah, fantastic. So in a short period of time, whether it be a week or 10 days or 2 weeks, whenever it's right, we'll do another show. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And it's only going to get more and more interesting and more impactful to you in your life as we go from show to show.
And my parting statement is the best of your life is the best of your life. Game on.
Excellent, Carole. God bless. Thank you so much for being with us. Invaluable stuff. We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody.